Hello viewers, welcome to Top Notch Online TV. With you today is the one and the only Teacher Fidelis of Alliance High School. I'm a teacher of English, an examiner, an author, and an editor. With me today is Teacher Emis of Alliance Girls High School. She's an examiner, she's a teacher of English, and an author. Next, we have Teacher Rispa. She's from PCA Kikuyu High School. She's a teacher of English, an examiner, and an author. In the last episode, we discussed the characters, students at home, I hope you remember. And today we continue with the same analysis of Fathers of Nations. We shall be looking at the summit. What was the main thing that was happening in this book? We're looking at the summit. Who was attending the summit? What was the main issue being discussed in this summit? To start us off, we shall be looking at what happened before the summit. Teacher Rispa, take us through.
Okay, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about what happened before the summit. First of all, to be noted is that the summit is being held in Banjul, the capital of Gambia. The heads of state that are in attendance are 49, inclusive of the head of state for Gambia makes it 50. They're being hosted at the Pinnacle Hotel, the same place that the summit is supposed to take place. In preparation for the summit, we are looking at Gambia had an expectation that it would give their country some publicity. Hosting 49 heads of state was no small deal.
Yeah.
Therefore, Gambia had hoped that it will make some good publicity out of it. However, the hosting of the summit came at a price, especially for the common citizen. To begin with, some roadside kiosks as well as some slums had to be torn down so that they can make way for the summit. Another thing that did not augur well with the common citizen is that the water had to be channeled
It was a fountain. Eh?
Oh, it was a fountain.
Yes.
To go into a fountain for the purpose of aesthetic, for Gambia to look beautiful.
Yes.
What about the roads? These people have never had an interest in tarmacking roads, but because now they're the host nation, they have to tarmac a bit of road and
just make the country look presentable.
Yeah, sure.
Because we're looking at the 49 heads of state visiting Gambia. So of course they had to look good for the visitors,
Sure.
quote unquote. But it was very painful for the common citizen. Yes.
anyway, back to the preparation for the summit.
Yeah.
Each head of state had to be put up in a hotel, and when they're being put up in a hotel, they were wondering what kind of a method are we going to use to put them up.
Yeah.
They finally settled for alphabetical order, in that the person coming from maybe Algeria will be
Angola.
Yes, Algeria, Angola, they'll be somewhere next to each other.
Yeah.
At the other end, there'll be people like someone from Zambia,
Yeah.
another person from Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
being put up also on the same side, on the same wing.
Yeah.
There was also the preparation in matters to do with security. We had two departments, the Department of Internal Security as well as the Department of Defense, taking care of security to ensure that our fathers of nations were well looked after.
Yeah.
The security was beefed up, even though the writer, in a sarcastic way, notes that they had covered the whole ground, but they forgot to cover the sky above.
Yeah.
All the people that were the security personnel were channeled to the ground, where they are protecting the heads of state. We're also looking at something else about the preparation. To do with the matters of protocol, we are seeing two departments being assigned the roles, the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. That is it about the preparation. And also to do with the preparation, there was a character we had mentioned last time, Dr. Afolabi.
Yes.
Dr. Afolabi had been invited by the presidents so that he can be their advisor. He had been picked specifically because of his book, Failure of States. Failure of States was a book that its ideas and the ideas that were to be presented by Way Omega, they merged. The ideas were similar. That is why he was invited as their as the advisor
in the summit, yes.
And he took an advantage of that position, and he could get someone observer status. That is what happened still on the preparation.
Thank you so much for this, Teacher Rispa. Just as we get to know something about the summit, everyone was calling Gambia the land of Kinta Konte. And so having 49 heads of state coming into your country, of course you have to look at matters security, and that is why we have the two ministries allocated this job. The next thing we look at is actually what happens in the summit. Teacher Rispa has said something that happens before the summit. Of course, we have to look at the arrangement, the seating arrangement in the summit, and they settled for the alphabetical order, which worked. Yeah. Then the next thing we look at is actually what happens in the summit during that meeting where we had the 49 heads of state plus the host president. What happened in that meeting? And Teacher Emis will explain more. Kindly.
Hello viewers, thank you Teacher Fidelis. So during the summit, it was expected that the host president was to chair the summit. So the president of Gambia was supposed to be the chair of that summit, but he delegates that role to another president of another country, by the name Miniko Menkiti. So the question is why? So at some point you are told that he did not want to disclose the reason why he could not chair the meeting. But later on in the book, we learned that he wanted to sit on the fence. He didn't want to offend anyone. He didn't want to take sides because he felt at some point in the summit, the heads of state might fail to reach a consensus, and he did not want to offend any president. So to play safe, he declines that post that he was supposed to have as the chair of the summit. So the summit agenda, I'll go to the summit agenda. The agenda was supposed to come and the summit was supposed to come and approve a document titled Way Omega that was endorsed by the Development Planning Committee. So before the summit, there was a committee that met and they endorsed that document. The committee was is it supported by African Union?
Yeah.
Yes, because the African Union detected that if the African states don't take up these changes that they were recommending, then they are going to stop the donations. They are going to pull out the aids that they are giving to the African states. So to pass this document before the summit, there were 20 people who met as a committee to endorse this document. So Minister Zito was the convener of this committee. He is actually a Minister of Development and Planning in an island country. So he was the convener during this committee. And so in the summit, he came to represent the committee during the summit. And so when he was given a chance to speak, of course, is for the Way Omega. So he takes the floor and talks about the advantages of adopting and approving the Way Omega. And of course, some presidents agree with him, others do not agree with him. So Zinto praises Way Omega and says that the changes that it was supposed to bring was for the benefit of African states. But he fails to tell the president that it was pushed down their throats by the African Union. It's not like, yes. Yeah, thank you. So during the summit also, we have Dr. Afolabi Abiola, who was invited by the ends of state to go and act as the advisor to the summit. So we also know from our earlier lessons or sessions that Dr. Afolabi had been approached by Longway, the director of AGDA, to come and be the guide to the path travelers. So is in this summit, according to the president, is on their side, supposed to advise them according to for Way Omega. But we know on the ground he's not for Way Omega. He's against Way Omega and he's supporting Path Alpha. So he takes this chance. When he's given a chance to speak as the advisor to the ends of state, he takes this chance and says that First of all, he says that he's going to share his 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Each was given 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But Minister Zinto took up part of Dr. Afolabi's time. So he was left with 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So he said he's going to share the 7 minutes with his friends. And during these 7 minutes, he introduces members of Path Alpha, the 5 of them, together with the director, Longway, to say something.
Yeah.
And then still during this time, he also introduces the document, Path Alpha. So he whispers to the chair, because he was sitting next to the chair, and tells him about Path Alpha. So before the presidents knew it, there was a document being presented to them or given. They were being given copies of Path Alpha. And Minister Zinto opposes it. He says that Path Alpha was not in the agenda. And so they should not push an idea that was not in the agenda in the first place. So the chair is very authoritative. Of course, he shuts down Minister Zinto, and he goes ahead to present a second document, Path Alpha, which was not in the agenda. So during the summit, because I don't want to go to the matrix method, during the summit, there is back and forth from the presidents. They exchange words, and then, of course, they had to adjourn the meeting for the sake of peace before things blow out of proportion. But later on, just to jump into the conclusion, later on we see Path Alpha, the document that was not in the agenda being carrying the day on being approved.
Yes.
So
Wonderful.
that's what happens in the summit.
Wonderful. This is what happens in the summit. And students at home, I hope you now see that we have two things we look at when we talk about the summit. What actually happens before the summit and what happens in the summit or during the summit. Now, we see that the presidents were not coming to an agreement. And there was a scuff, and they had to adjourn the meeting. And when this was done, then we get to discuss the method committee. We get to discuss the method committee. And this will be done by Teacher Emis. What happened?
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to introduce Midway, a president by the name Bibo Dibonso. So for the method committee to happen, so this President Dibonso was given the floor to address the summit. So when he stood up, he creates chaos. He first starts by insulting the chair and saying that the chair is not the best word to use this, is not doing his work. It's like he's failing the summit. Because according to him, the chair has allowed a member of the summit or another head of state to introduce something that is not in the document. Yet they were supposed to sit there and discuss the document with Omega. So he says that the leader or the chair is inefficient, and that does not sit so well with the chair of the summit. So they exchange words, and tempers flare, and everyone is throwing words all over. So until a president known as Wasiwasi Wesiga realizes that this is getting out of hand. So what does he do? He whispers to the chair that about the trick. He says he first calls for a point of order. He says point of order, chair, and then he tells him, the chair, remember the trick. So the chair at this time is worked up. He's angry because of the attack from President Dibonso. So at first he's like, what trick? What trick are we talking about? So Wasiwasi is like, your trick. That's when the chair remembers about the agreement they had prior to because just like the host president, he had also foreseen a situation where they're not going to reach a consensus. So to prepare for such a situation, they had, together with some other presidents, came up with a committee that came up with something called the trick. So now this is what President Wasiwasi was reminding the chair that where we are right now, we need to use the trick. And so the chair comes down, remembers there was a solution to all this mess, and they adjourns the meeting. But before doing that, now he says that they need, actually it's President Wasiwasi who actually voices out, because they didn't want it to look like it came from the chair. So President Wasiwasi says that he has two things in mind. First of all, they need to adjourn the meeting until the following day, because it was somewhere in the evening, the following day, so that it doesn't get out of control, because now people were angry at each other. The second proposal that he gave is that they should come up with a small group. And now this is the method committee group.
Yes.
They should come up with a small group comprising of 3 people.
Ibarosa.
Yes,
Ibarosa.
President Ibarosa.
Gamlozi.
Yes, thank you, Gamlozi
Bangura.
and Bagura. And then Bagura was supposed to be the
Chair.
chair of this committee. Ironically, or if you remember the satire, Bagura was the one who said or stated clearly that he has not read the documents
And he does not
he has
intend
no plan to read any of the documents. Yet now he is the chair. That's political satire. He is the chair of the committee that is supposed to come up with a method, the best method to use to choose between way omega and path alpha. So that's what we call the method committee. A committee to come up with a way, not to choose, come up with a method that they can use to choose between way omega and path alpha. Now, before I give the floor back to our moderator, I mentioned about the trick. Now, what is the trick? What was in this trick? So the trick was supposed to be the savior of the day for the chairperson. If they got to a place where there is no consensus and people are about to exchange blows during the summit, he was supposed to use this matrix method so that they can reach into a consensus. And that is now which involved coming up with a method committee. So that was the trick that they were talking about.
Wonderful. So looking at the method committee, you have to note that President Bangura had not looked at the document and he had no intentions of reading these documents. So again, as we look at the method committee, I think another issue comes up where we have poor leadership. Because how do you even now talk about a document that you have not gone through? How do you even approve it? How do you advise the committee to advise now the 49 members of the states? This is a poor leadership. Now, the next thing we look at as students is the choice matrix, the trick, quote unquote, because this is what now the method committee was to use to ensure that the summit continued and they had a way to choose the 2 documents, that is path alpha or way omega. So, Teacher Rispa, could you explain to the students what the choice matrix is?
Okay, thank you, Teacher Fidelis, for the opportunity. My colleague who has just spoken has mentioned about the method committee being chaired by Didier Bangura, being assisted by Ibarosa and Gamlozi as well. To avert a situation, people were almost coming to blows. They decided that now that there were 2 documents that had been presented, Path Alpha and Way Omega, they needed to find a tiebreaker between the 2. Which one will be chosen to carry the day? Therefore, these 3 people who were appointed, they were given the opportunity to go and deliberate and come back with what they had decided on behalf of the others. What is surprising is that when they went out there, they did not even take a lot of time to come up with a solution. It only took them 1 hour to agree on what to do, therefore coming up with their choice matrix. The choice matrix looked like some kind of a formula that was to be determined by the toss that was supposed to be determined by the toss of a coin. And the details of this choice matrix were heads or tail. A very important issue being narrowed down to heads or tail, the ones who will carry the day. And the interpretation was, if they toss the coin and then you get to the head, it means that you have chosen way omega. If the coin was to be tossed and then we land on tails, they had chosen path alpha. After that, either path alpha or way omega, depending on the head or the tail, will proceed to the next stage. That is what had been decided. Therefore comes the test. They toss the coin
again.
First time to toss the coin. When they tossed the coin, it landed on tails, meaning that Path Alpha had carried the day, but this was not over. They needed a second tossing of the coin before they can now cement their decision. Upon the second tossing, they had said, there's also another catch. If it lands on the head, the one that had been chosen first is now approved. If they go back to the heads, the one that had been chosen first is now approved. If it falls on the tail, the one that had been chosen first now becomes rejected, therefore adopting the other. But what happens? They toss the coin, they get the tail, therefore meaning Path Alpha had carried the day.
Yeah.
Upon the second tossing, they get the head, which now confirms Path Alpha to have carried the day.
Yeah.
If I could look at it maybe from a literature perspective, this looks like an act of God, an act of fate.
Yeah.
Because when you're tossing a coin, it can just be either the head or the tail.
Yeah.
But for the Path Alpha to carry the day, in fact, after 2 tosses of the coin, it was an act of fate whereby it looks like God's decision.
Yeah.
We choose Path Alpha because Path Alpha was the one that had the interest of the
common
citizens
citizens,
at heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is it about the choice matrix. But even though so, it did not augur well with everyone. You see someone like Dibonso drawing out a gun.
Yeah.
He wants the summit to be reopened, meaning the solution that they had come up with, the conclusion of choosing Path Alpha had not sat well with him.
And of course, this happened because we see all the presidents, number one, they wanted to go to the summit so that they approve Way Omega.
Yeah.
As they convened the summit, they never thought about Path Alpha, because now Path Alpha is just introduced by the Path Travelers and Dr. Afolabi. But they didn't have this prior information. So using the choice matrix, students at home, what is the choice matrix? We're looking at tossing of the coin, heads or tails. And just remember, students, we're not just using one toss. There had to be 2. There had to be 2. And as our teacher has explained, using this method, then due to fate, we still had now Path Alpha taking the day. And Path Alpha is the document that was supporting the common citizen. So in a way, the presidents were not happy, and this is why we have the president, Dibonso, asking for the summit to be reopened. But that was not done. So as we continue discussing the summit, we shall see what happened at the end of the summit. The next thing we shall look at is the poles of influence. Now, we have 49 heads of state. Who speaks first? These are presidents, African presidents. Everyone wants to be given that chance. But looking at the poles of influence, then we can get to know the chair. What did he think about this? Which president was given what opportunity, and what was the influence? Kindly explain.
Thank you, Teacher Fidelis. So just like we have been saying, we had 50 heads of state attending the summit, 49 were visiting, and 1 was the host. So I'll start by talking about the host president. Just like I said earlier on, he was supposed to play the role of the chair of the summit, but he declines that position, and he hands it over to another president. Menkiti, to chair the meeting so that he can play safe. He does not want to anger any president. He does not want to be on the wrong side of any president. He wants to remain in the middle, and for his own benefit or for the benefit of the country. Now, before the summit, when we talk about the post of influence, before the summit begins, this president cleverly goes to greet the president he considers core during the summit. So he does not greet every president, but he goes to shake hands with the 5 presidents of the countries that he considered core and that he did not want to offend. The first person to go greet was the president of Nigeria. So according to him, the president of Nigeria was powerful because of the population in his country. Nigeria is overpopulated, and so as a result, it gives the country a lot of power and influence. So that's the first person he goes to. He goes, shakes hands with the president of Nigeria, so kind of create that kind of rapport, and to show them that to show him that the status of Nigeria was not in doubt or it was not in question. The second person or the second president he goes to is the president of South Africa. So he goes and also shakes hands with the second president of South Africa, because according to him, South Africa, there is no country in Africa that beats South Africa in terms of technology. It was very advanced technology-wise. So he wanted also to create that kind kind of connection or rapport, with that president. The third president he goes to meet is the president of Kenya. So the president of the Kenya is not a powerful country, but there is a way that they are able to be friends.
Have allies.
In the big countries as their allies. And they are supposed to be like the darling of America. So America loves Kenya. And as a result, you don't want to offend Kenya, because by offending Kenya, you're also offending America, a very powerful country. So the fourth president he goes to is the president of Zimbabwe. And this one was known for sheer obstinacy. There was nothing good with him, but he did want, he was very stubborn. That's not someone you want as your enemy. So to avoid that, he goes and shakes hands with him to show him that we're in good terms. I am not your enemy, I am your friend. So Gambia is a friend to Zimbabwe. The last person he goes to is the president of Libya. And this one was known for failure to abide by the agreed rules. He's also described as arrogant. So just like the president of Zimbabwe, you don't want to be an enemy of someone who's arrogant, because of course their wrath is going to be directed towards you. So you want, just like we say, keep your enemies closer. That kind of a situation. So these are the first presidents that he goes to say, to greet them and create a rapport with them.
Okay, that's okay. And that is what we have on the poles of influence. And the next thing we look at, we had 49 presidents in the summit, but not every president spoke. Not every president gave a contribution, but we have a number of presidents that actually voiced their opinion in the summit, and that is what Teacher Rispa will be discussing next.
Yes. Apart from the poles of influence, you also have other heads of state. Their countries have not really been mentioned, but their names have been mentioned. To start us off, I'll talk about Miniko Menkiti. Miniko Menkiti was the chair for the summit for that particular day. Upon the president for Gambia declining the position to chair, Menkiti took it upon himself to chair the meeting. And you're seeing like he's a charismatic kind of leader. He's able to give chances to people to speak and also call the meeting back to order. Apart from Menkiti, we cannot fail to discuss others, starting from Didier Bangura. Didier Bangura was president of a certain French-speaking country. If you're looking at the instances, this guy is using French. There is clarity, but then he can speak also a bit of English. What you're being told about Bangura is that people respected him on basis of seniority. He was a senior by age. And also another thing about Bangura, he was the chair of the method committee that came up with the choice matrix. Another leader mentioned is Simba Ibarossa. Simba Ibarossa, using the words of the author refers to him as a fire eater. The meaning of a fire eater is an aggressive person. And what is notable from the pages that we've spoken about Simba Ibarossa, as much as he was an aggressive kind of person, people used to feel that a meeting is not complete without his invitation. They had to incorporate him into their meetings. And then another thing about Ibarossa, I'm not yet done with this guy. This president comes up with a lie. When he wants to give a reason as to why he would reject Way Omega, he says that Way Omega gives them a term of not beyond 2 years. They can only rule for 2 years. But when he's asked to point out from the document, where does it say that you're only supposed to rule for 2 years? It is in fact not true. He had just invented that particular lie. That is Simba Ibarossa. Apart from Simba Ibarossa, we are also having a king represented, a king through Jemba Jemba. Jemba Jemba, what has been said about him is that he was youthful, a fact that the rest of them could not pride in. In other words, the heads of state that were in attendance, they were old. The only one that looked like he was youthful was Jemba Jemba. Another thing, we're still on the maybe outer appearance of Jemba Jemba. Jemba Jemba is someone who is said to be good looking. Something that came to him maybe because people from the royal family, they had the advantage. They were spoiled for choice when they're choosing their women. Because you are royal. You can choose a woman and you'll not choose the ugly one. Of course, he chose a beautiful one. Therefore, they ended up having Jemba Jemba, a very handsome young man. About Jemba Jemba, there's some kind of pride that comes with this king. He looks at the others and he cannot even identify with their situation. They're talking about their need to stay in power. Ibaroso, remember the way he was inventing a lie? Their need to stay in power. They are getting into power also through bloodshed, through something like coups, through rigging. He looks at them and then thinks, these are not the situations that bother me. Because he, as Jemba Jemba, his position comes hereditary. He, left from the father and it comes to him. That is it about Jemba Jemba. When he's given a speaking cue, he looks at Bibo Dibonso. Dibonso looks like he is impatient. I can't wait for my turn to speak. Therefore, Jemba Jemba decides, let me give my speaking cue, my turn to speak. I'll give it to Dibonso. Enters Dibonso. Dibonso has been described also as another fire eater. He's also a very aggressive person, and notable about Bibo Dibonso, he has stayed in power for 40 years. And he has been able to avert any opposition. Anytime someone tries to overthrow his government, he's ahead of them in information. He gets to stop it in good time. Therefore, he has stayed in power for 40 years. Another thing, he looks like he's in a very combative mood. What has happened is that the guy out of old age, he's having health problems. For example, he cannot hold his bladder. Just that morning, he had wet his
clothes.
Yes, his clothes, because he cannot control his bladder. Now that wetting of his clothes, if you look at it from a deeper point of view, this guy is losing control, not only about the bladder, he's losing the control, therefore it is putting him in a foul mood. The same kind of foul mood, he takes it into the summit. He goes ahead and trashes the efforts of Menkiti as the chair. And later on, still on Dibonso, when maybe the side he wanted to be chosen does not carry the day, he might have been a proponent of Way Omega. When Way Omega did not carry the day, the guy draws out a gun and is asking people, reopen the summit. He's told, the deliberations are over. We cannot reopen the summit. But the guy says, the guy is told, put away the gun. And he's also daring. He tells them, make me. I'll not do it unless you make me do it. Later on, they call the security personnel on him and he escapes through the exit door. But Menkiti's life is saved because he was aiming at Menkiti. You can see the way he's a fire eater, the way the writer has described him, an aggressive kind of a person. We cannot leave this discussion without having discussed Wasiwasi Wesiga. Wasiwasi Wesiga was part of a group that had foreseen an eventuality that these people will not reach a consensus. Some people will be for Way Omega, others will be against Way Omega. And they had thought they had been proactive enough. If there is an eventuality that they will not reach a consensus, we'll have to invent a trick. But then, so that it doesn't look like all this is being done by the chair, one among the chair's people to propose the trick. Therefore, it was Wasiwasi Wesiga who reminded the chair about the trick. They should effect the trick that will make some part of the committee to go and come up with a way forward. Those are some of the presidents that were able to be mentioned in our summit.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Teacher Rispa. So students, looking at the summit and what happened during the summit, I hope that you have captured the 5 presidents that our teacher has shared. And most importantly, we're looking at President Bangora, who was the chair for the method committee. This is a person who is bringing deliberations, but he's not helping in a way because he has not looked at the document. So with that, students, I'm sure you can give more information about the summit. These are the questions I want you to think about. First off, what happens before the summit? Describe that. Next, we have what happens during the summit. So you can mention the presidents, you can talk about the method committee as well as the choice matrix. And with that, students, we are done for today. Thank you for watching. Ensure that you subscribe to this channel because we keep engaging you, helping you to learn and grow. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.